and welcome to podcast number 3 or 003 if you're a digital person, whatever. We're going to talk about a lot of interesting things today, how you deal with people coming into your life, how you deal with them leaving your life, either in business or in your personal life. But first, since my happy birthday got such a wonderful bunch of comments, I want to do something for my Italian friends. Como bella c'è la luna, brille strette, strette come butto belle fasteggiare sotto cielo di Roma. That's it. Okay. Have fun.
What was that?
That was
for all the people like me who have no idea.
That was a part of the song On an Evening in Roma by Dean Martin.
Oh.
It's the Italian part, and it's about lovers walking hand in hand. I could do the whole song, but I don't want people to vomit.
Okay.
So I give them 3 seconds, and that's it.
It was beautiful.
Thank you. So anyway, my friends in Italy, hi. I'm glad you're with us, and all over the world.
Ciao. Wait,
Ciao.
Is that hello
Ciao.
or goodbye?
Ciao.
It's both, right?
It's kind of both, yeah.
Ciao.
It's like shalom.
Ah.
It's like, hey.
Ciao.
Hey, ciao.
I really want to go to Italy.
It's great. I loved Italy.
You've been to Italy?
I've been to Italy. Yeah, been to Italy. Love
Gosh,
it.
I haven't even been across the Atlantic Ocean. I need to go to London, Italy. I need to go to Europe somehow.
When I entered Italy from France, I remember saying to my wife at the time, the woman I was married to at that time, I said, I feel like we're home. It felt like home.
Wow.
There's a whole other backstory to it, but we'll use that another time.
Another time.
Yeah.
So, our topic today is about people in your life. How do you bring them in? How do you get rid of them? It sounds sort of weird to say it that way, but yeah, like how do you deal with the people in your life?
It's like, hey, come on in, and adios, amoeba.
Yeah, simple.
Right.
All right. See you next week.
Right. Thank you. Stopping again. The interesting thing is that you'll hear people say that people enter your life for a reason. I believe that. It can't be any other way. It's either a reason to teach you a lesson that was negative, that you turn into a positive, or it's something of beauty and love, and you hold on to those people forever. I mean, my best friend, I love him dearly. He's been my best friend for 64 years. And I'm only 30, so that's really bizarre. It's a different, space-time continuum. But, and he's like a brother of mine. And of course, I have him, my brother, my son, my whole family, and they are dear to me. And I have lots of friends that are dear to me, including those who I've had relationships with, women I've had relationships, women I've been married to. I love them all. I really don't have negative feelings about them. I've learned lessons from them, and I'm friends with all of them. So you hold on to that. But then there are those people who are just almost toxic.
Yes.
And they're really substantiating their own existence, and they need to dump on people to make themselves feel better. And when you run into those people, and if experience has taught you that, you know that you can be tolerant of them. But I have a saying, I'm tolerant of everything except intolerance. So therefore, if someone is intolerant with you, no matter what you do, no matter how kind you are, you have to let go. You have to let go of people in your life who are draining energy from you. You have to let go of things in your life that are taking up space. That it's like get rid of the trash. You don't need most of the stuff you have.
Yeah. I think it's ironic that you say that, because literally this year, I don't mean to be cheesy, but in 2018, I sort of took what is it called when you like sort of take a review and you like do like a rain check or something?
An
like
inventory.
Yes, exactly. I did a full inventory of the people in my life, and I made a mental note and said that if you're not, inspiring me, uplifting me, if you don't really care for me, I don't have time. I can't deal with the negativity, people who are toxic, people who don't have any sort of aspirations. Like I can't. So it's funny that you say that, because I've literally been doing that the start of this year. It's just I only have a few people that I even talk to on a weekly basis. It's crazy.
It's interesting because all those other types of people, the toxic people, they drain energy from you. And
I don't have the energy to be drained.
No, and that's the thing. You got to think about what your energy inventory is.
Yep.
You know, every day, just like this camera, just like your cell phone, you got to plug it in and get more energy.
Yep, you got to charge up.
That's what sleep is for. Well, if somebody is draining that energy from you, it's a bummer. So you have to know when to say, I'm not going to be mean to that person, because that's like reinforcing the way they are, so that they can be meaner to me. I'm going to just avoid them. I'm not going to play into their game, and I'm going to say, see you. Okay. Mentally. So you may see them around, you may wave to them, or whatever the case is. So a lot of people don't, maybe they do understand, but I don't think they recognize the value of positive people and the value of positive energy. And by the way, if I sound a little off, it's because I am a little off. I got a toothache and a headache and a little bit of I don't know if I get a cold or whatever, but anyway, we're here, show must go on and all that.
It's good. Your voice is very boomy and nice. Let me
boomy and nice.
Help
they were my lawyers.
There you go.
A number of years.
Oh,
yeah. Boomy, nice, and quiet. The word.
I see.
Which is different from the company I want to start, which I may have mentioned. Hello, I can't hear you. It's great.
It's pretty genius, and we'll make Amazon Echo sort of plugins. So when you say hello, Alexa, she says hello, and then says hello again, and then
I can't hear you,
and then I can't hear you. Yeah. It's coming soon.
Exactly, and it's that way. And you got to know when to let go. You got to know when to let go of things. And I held on to things for ridiculous reasons, sentimental reasons, thinking I would refer back to them in another 2 or 3 years, and all this other stuff. And then a very dear woman in my life came in and looked, and she says, "You got to get rid of all those things."
You're like, "What you talking about?"
And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Because they're taking up space." And I looked through them and I went, "You know what? You're right." And I had like 9 big trash bags full of stuff, and I cleaned out all these other things and threw out furniture and did all that. And it's much more, it's freeing in a lot of ways. Now when I go into my office or I go into my den or wherever, it's cleaner. And it's part of that understanding that life is permanently temporary. And some of the stuff you have, you look at it and you go, who's going to want that when I'm gone? Why am I cluttering someone else's life? Just let me get rid of it now.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're all going to die. We know that. And then your children or whomever will take over what you have, and they're going to look through it and they're going to say,
like, what the heck were you doing?
Why was Dad keeping this? Why was Mom holding on to this? Oh, I don't want to throw it out. I know it meant something to her, but I gotta kind of.
So now they're stuck with it.
Yeah, I better throw it out. I'm sure she'll say, "Oh, get rid of it," which is what happened when I was going through my mother's stuff. But so letting go is very hard for people, but once you get the hang of it, it becomes like easy, and it's the same way in business. In business, I always had this, maybe it's a rationalization, but I think it's reality. When someone, and it's this way in academia, when someone's not pulling their weight, they're either not helping their teammates in work or in academia, or they're stealing from you. And I don't mean just like, taking $20 and sticking it in their pocket. No, they're not doing their job. You're paying them. You're paying them the $50,000, the $100,000, the $25,000, whatever it is, and they're not working. So that's that's stealing.
Basically.
Yeah, it's stealing. So
Pretty
it's
much.
like, you have to let them go. I'll never forget. Pardon me if I mentioned this before in one of our podcasts, but I had a dear friend who worked for me when I owned Four Eyes. He started it and owned it. You all know that.
I think I heard this story.
Yeah.
Definitely not on the podcast, though. I heard it in class.
And I loved him, and he used to hang out at the original store. And,
Yep.
and eventually he asked if we could use him and pay him and if he could have a job. And I said, sure,
Yeah.
you can have a job. But he was a wonderful human being, but he'd mess everything up.
I remember it.
Right? So,
And it's Terry who's just like, I like you. You're such a good person, but you suck.
yeah. And I actually, literally, he used to work in our lab, and in the optical business, every job is in a job tray. It's about that high, about that wide, and that long. It has the frames and the lenses,
Prescriptions,
and the whole bit. Yeah, you know it. So he would drop like a stack of 10 of them. So you'd have to figure out which lenses went with which.
And they're not marked.
They're not marked. No, the frames maybe, but the lenses not.
Never.
Okay, never. So finally, I had to say to him, I'm not going to use his name, but I sat down with him and I literally cried.
It's heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking.
Because he's a good guy.
He's a good guy, yeah. I said, I love you, man, but I got to let you go. You can't work here anymore. You can stop by, hang out here, but you can't work here anymore because you're costing me money.
Yep.
And you're screwing things up for everybody else here because they have to do your work plus their own work.
Extra work.
Yeah. So it's you have to know when it's time to go. You have to realize that letting people go is better for everyone. I guarantee you that there are companies out there where productive people keep saying, I wish they'd get rid of this idiot.
Mm-hmm.
They're screwing things up, and everybody knows it except the person above them. Okay? So, or the person above that person who may like this person, or they may be a relative or whatever. But there comes a point where if everybody feels that way, maybe everybody should get together and write a letter. And it's very difficult because everybody's afraid that they'll get fired.
Yeah.
So there has to be open communication. If there's open communication, it's cool. So when you're forming a company, or you're working for a company, or you're being hired by a company, and during the interview process, you can ask, is there open communication here? Can I tell you when something is wrong? Can the people here tell you when something is wrong?
That's interesting. Yeah, I never really think about that during,
But when you're being interviewed,
that's very important.
You should also interview the company.
Yep. I always heard that.
Yeah, it makes sense. So therefore, you want to make sure there's no retribution.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So as I always tell my students, you can disagree with me, you can argue with me, whatever, and there's absolutely no retribution, except maybe 1 or 2 grade levels. But don't worry about that.
Just 1 or 2.
1 or 2.
No big deal.
But I always tell them, I'm kidding. You can say whatever you want, and I'll respect you for that. And you have your opinion, I have mine,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what makes it beautiful. So, but if there's this movement against a person because they're toxic, it's going to do the company a lot better and make it more productive if they just get rid of people.
Yep.
Let them find something where they're not toxic. Let them work in a place that meets their value system and their mission in life and things like that. And that's why it's so important to assess your employees. Literally do physical assessments of them and allow them to take these, and management should analyze them and say, this person should be here, this person should be there, this person shouldn't be here at all.
Yep.
And I did that for many, many, many years in the healthcare business, in the landscape business, all kinds of businesses. And I did training and keynote speaking, stuff like that. And it's hard for people, but it's hard for people in life. It really is. And it's hard for people in business. You always hear about people who have stayed together in a marriage for the kids.
Yeah.
Or because they were so entrenched in the family, but they're so unhappy.
Little did they know that is doing more harm than good.
Correct.
Just living in a toxic environment. in marriage and in business.
And kids know it.
They're not dumb.
Right. So what you do is it's probably just better just to end it and or go to therapy or marriage counseling or whatever kind of counseling, partnership counseling, and either rectify the situation for the better or say, this isn't working. I love you. I'll always love you, but it's time to move on. And it's that way in business. It's that way in life. And letting go sort of encapsulates so many feelings.
Yep.
Love and kindness and distrust and dislike and all the positives and the negatives. And what outweighs what. And you really do have to take an inventory. Back to inventory.
Yep.
You have to take an inventory of, why am I doing this? You may not realize this, but you only have one life.
If you didn't realize
that, unless you're Shirley MacLaine.
Hey.
But make the most out of your life. Don't go on through drudgery and say it's going to change tomorrow and it's going to change the next day. And 2 or 3 years down the road, it still hasn't changed, and you're 2 and 3 years down the road. So look at yourself. Look at what you want to do. Look at what is holding you back and moving you forward, and how to align those things and prioritize those things so that you become the person you want to be. Will there be bumps? Will there be peaks and valleys?
Peaks and valleys.
Will there be tragedy and triumphs? Absolutely. Absolutely. But that's part of life. Having extra stuff that you allow to come into your life, however, some things, look, we're in control of our lives to a large degree, not completely. We can't stop a tsunami. We can't stop a hurricane. We can't stop a lot of different things. That other guy driving down the road at 90 miles an hour who goes through a stop sign and you're there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, certain things you can't control, but most of the stuff in your life you can control. And and if you have a high internal locus of control, meaning if it is to be, it's up to me.
I remember that.
Yeah, remember we did.
I remember that.
We did that assessment, and we do that assessment in my classes.
I have a pretty high locus of control.
Yes,
Almost,
internal.
yeah.
Internal, and
internal locus of control.
That means that you take control of what happens to you. A high external locus of control is just the opposite. It's it's God's will.
Woe is me.
Yeah. Woe is me. It's God's will. Everything's out of my control. Blah blah blah. So look at yourself and sort of reprioritize where you're at from a locus of control standpoint and build on that. If you already have a high internal locus of control, you know that. But if you don't, take an inventory and figure out how to attain that. And of course, you can always post a question below here on YouTube
if you have any questions.
Yeah. And by the way, I want to tell you, we've gained a lot of subscribers on YouTube.
Woo!
So, and we're looking for more. So if you're watching it and you're not a subscriber, see that little red button down to the right? Below.
Somewhere there.
Yeah.
Do it.
Subscribe.
Yep.
We're looking for more subscribers.
But
yeah,
that just reminded me when you talked about locus of control and sort of that time and when I was learning from your classes, I remember something that really stuck with me was the fact that, we're talking about getting rid of people, but how do you keep people? Because something that I was really reminded of was the fact that when you fire someone, when you hire another person, you hire, what was it? It's like 5 multiples or 4 multiples.
Yeah, it's 4 to 5 multiples.
And it's like, can explain for the people.
Right, I'll explain.
You do it way better than me.
By the way, I think we forgot to do this. I'm Dan Goldberg. That's Javasky Thomas. Okay?
You guys know that already.
You know it, but we should repeat it. You got to understand that you really should have a thorough investigation of the people you hire.
Yep.
No one knows everything about everybody. Nobody does. We all have our own stories. We don't reveal everything. But when you fire someone, if you own a company, by the way, or an an entrepreneur and an intrapreneur, and you want to spend as little as you can on training people that you have to hire because you fired somebody else. I want you to think about this. You hire someone, so that costs money, right? You got to train them. Then you let them go because they're not producing well. Then you have to hire somebody new, which costs money. Then you have to train them. That costs money. And then there's a loss of productivity in between those things. So, and there's other stuff too. And then there's how your other members of your company interact with those people, learning about each person. All that costs money. We normally don't think of it costing money, but it does. So it can be a 4-time multiple, a 5-time multiple, a 5.5-time, whatever it is. You should be pretty good at investigating that and hiring people that are not going to cost you a lot of money when you have to let them go.
Yeah.
And getting people who are going to make you money when they're there. So I'm a big proponent of that. They should understand the culture of the company. They should understand the mission of the company and the vision of the company and all
Very
that stuff.
important.
All that stuff you normally hear, but it's real. And as I think I mentioned before, when people would say, "Oh man, I love Four Eyes. I'd like to buy a franchise," and we would say, "There's no franchises. It's company owned." And they say, "Well, I'd love to have one in Chicago. Can we open one in Chicago?" I say, "We can, but you got to work for me first for 6 months, so that I get the fact that you get me, you understand the mission and vision of the company, the philosophy of the company, and then if we mesh together, we'll open in Chicago." Boom. Which we did, and Boston, and LA, and San Francisco, and all over the place. But that cuts down on turnover. Turnover is brutal.
And what is turnover for the people who don't know?
Turnover is when you put it in your toaster. It's got usually a jelly filling.
Okay.
It's delicious. Now, a turnover is I hire someone and they don't work out, so I got to fire them and then hire somebody else. So that's personnel turnover. You're losing someone, you're hiring someone. You have turnover in your life. You're married, you get divorced. You marry again, you get divorced. It's turnover of your relationships, turnover of your employees. It's a cycle sometimes. Sometimes it's a negative cycle because you don't know how to filter people out. And people say, well, hopefully you learn from your mistakes. And some people, unfortunately, do learn from their mistakes, but they just learn how to keep making them. You all know people like that. We've all been guilty of that. So it's like, I learned from my mistake. Look, I got the same person in my life. She's just in a different form. Okay. So, or he's working for me. Yeah, I know he's like the last guy I fired, but okay. So you got to figure
this
out.
time is different, right?
This time is different. It's always different, but be cognizant of that. So this time really is different, and your turnover in your life and your business is minimal to maximize the positive aspects of your life and the profitability of your company. I hope I answered that.
That's great. Speaking of turnover and the time value of money, well, not necessarily speaking of, but something that you mentioned was the multiple places that you've opened in Chicago and Boston and Philadelphia area. How do you find the time, which is money? How do you find the time to sort of manage all of those places? Or did you manage all of those places? Did you have people manage it for you? Talk about multiple locations in business, because I'm actually kind of interested in how you can do something like that.
That's a good question. What happened was, originally we would, everybody that walked in, every patient gave us an RX, a prescription. And we had all their information, where they lived and, what town, and outside of Philly, because it was in downtown Philly. For those of you who don't know the word Philly, it's Philadelphia. Okay, there might be one person that doesn't understand. That's
fair.
Philly
Fair
is
enough.
Philadelphia. So, so then we have a disproportionate number of people coming from Bucks County, lower Bucks, like Doylestown and stuff like that. Why don't we open a store there? Now, some people would think, well, aren't you cannibalizing your existing customer base that would come to you in town? Well, not really, because the people who would come to us in town worked in town.
Right.
Right? Because Center City, Philly is booming with insurance and retail and banks, finance, and all these other things. And it's growing, and it's a phenomenal city, but that's a whole other thing. But we would say, let's open in Doylestown. And all the people who are our patients, we'll just send them out something and say, we're open in Doylestown.
Yep.
We'll advertise there. Tell your friends and neighbors. So that cut down on advertising like crazy. And lo and behold, as soon as we did that, we were busy. And then it was, well, you got to find a manager.
Right. Right.
Okay.
So you go back to what we were talking about earlier.
Right. Somebody who understands it. And initially we had somebody like that. And then we had someone who was toxic.
Wow.
He was really, really toxic. Actually, I'll tell you a story. This is for all the people that own businesses. We were one of the first to change hours from 9 to 5 to 10 to 6. Because we figured nobody comes in it before work. Everybody comes in after work, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah. So we did that. And this one fellow who should go unnamed, we were always trying to, we monitored the people. But one day I get a call from a patient, and she says, I think I told you.
I know this story.
We're waiting.
I know all the stories.
Yeah, because I explain these to my students. We're waiting outside your store, or we were waiting outside your store at 10 o'clock. We sat in the car. We came back. Nobody came. At 11:30 or 11 o'clock, whatever it was, the manager comes, and we follow him to the door, and he goes, I'm sorry, it's lunchtime, and I'm just picking up my lunch. Whereupon,
what?
Yeah, he closed the store, and the woman told us this, and my brother and I looked at each other, and we went, "This is insane." So my brother went up there. My brother was part of the company, and a big part of the company, and he changed the locks. I said, "Go change the locks and fire him, and give the woman and her mother the glasses for free."
Easy.
And, it's goodwill.
Yep.
Right. And that's what we did.
Take note. That's how. That's true customer service.
Yeah. So we fired him, and then my brother stayed up there for a while until we found someone who met all the criteria, and that's what we did. And then that fellow who wanted to open in Chicago, he worked for 6 months, and he was cool. We had then what we did was started to ring the city. We would open up in the downtown area or the hipper area.
Okay.
Like in what is it, Chicago? I think it's Old Town, and then go out to the suburbs and open one in downtown Chicago near the Loop and so forth. And we did that in Philly, and we found people like we went to Allentown and Media and Bryn Mawr. It was all encompassing all. It's the circumference of the city.
Okay.
And we did that in all the cities that we went into. But when we opened in L.A., the person who opened in L.A. was my cousin, and I knew him my whole life, and he got it. The person that opened in Boston had been working for us for a year and a half, and he got it. The person who opened in San Francisco, he got it. He had been working for us for also about a year. And that's the way it went.
Okay, so what I'm gathering from it, at least, is it's less systematic and more organic. Things just happen organically. You sort of react to where the attention is coming from.
Yes, but there is a system to it.
Okay, well.
Okay, you don't deviate from the formula too much. But the city sometimes dictates that. If it doesn't have a strong downtown, you look for the other area that's strong. Okay. Where people tend to congregate, and there are certain places like that. San Francisco was downtown, but we had a store in Berkeley. That first store was in Berkeley. Goes back to the hipper area.
Nice.
Downtown Philly was in the hipper area, but it was 3 blocks from all the financial places, and so people just walk over. And part of Philadelphia metropolitan area is New Jersey. So we just opened up in South Jersey as well because people knew who we were. And also we had a lot of public relations. We were in Philadelphia Magazine, which was the original city magazine in the country. We were in the Inquirer, the newspaper, the Bulletin, which was a big newspaper, the Daily News, all the ABC, CBS, NBC, and PBS in Philly, and other magazines.
Tell them about that story, about the first big marketing push that you got with the newspaper. I think it's a good story because it shows preparation and being proactive about things.
Well, it's interesting because little by little, the company grew. The company started on November the 1st. So here we were growing the company, and I'm outgoing, as you can tell. So I would go out to all the clubs. I'd hand out flyers. I'd tell all my friends, and I'll never forget. I was at a place called Dirty Frank's in Philly, which is a bar. A lot of people know it.
Is it still a thing today?
Yeah.
I think I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's at 13th and Pine. So somebody said to me, "What do you do?" It was a Sunday, I think. Yeah, I think it was a Sunday or Saturday night or whatever. And I said, I have this little store a couple blocks up at 15th and Pine. It's called Four Eyes. It's a eyewear, sell eyewear. He said, I just got my prescription. I said, come on, let's walk to the store.
Let's go.
And that's what we did. And we bought a pair of glasses. So little by little, I built it up, and it caught the eye of a reporter for the Philadelphia Bulletin, which was a big newspaper in Philly for 100 and who knows how many years. It was a long, long time. It is no longer in existence, but as is the problem with most newspapers right now. But he said, he came in, it was like on a Thursday or Wednesday or whatever. He said, this place is phenomenal because everybody was charging, as I may have mentioned, $200, $150, $300, and we were charging $25. Same stuff or better. And he said, I got to write about this. I'm going to write about this. And he said, I'm sending in a photographer. So the photographer came in that Friday, and Bill Mandel was his name, and he interviewed me, and we had a long discussion. And the photographer came in on that Friday, and the place was crowded. And he said, you're going to quintuple business overnight. And I went, what do you mean?
What?
Yeah,
Whoa.
I said, we're rocking now. We're doing 15,
Let's do this.
15 RXs a day. It was just me. And
it was just you.
It was just me. There was no.
Wow.
I hadn't hired anybody else. So
forgot that.
Yeah. So I see this. Well, the Sunday paper used to come out late Saturday night and Sunday, different editions. And lo and behold, there's this picture of me. And I think the title was "Hip Capitalist Dispenses the New Look." And of course, my hair was down to here. My beard was.
We got to find a picture. I'll put a picture right there.
Yeah, you'll
I have to find it.
You'll see it. And anyway, sure enough, come Monday morning, plus the story was on the first page of the Metro section above the fold. And if anybody's out there that knows advertising and public relations.
Okay.
Like when you flip through a newspaper, it's right there. You see it right away. And we did about 75 prescriptions. Plus, I had to dispense the glasses that people had previously bought and adjust people. And I remember I called my brother and I said, Jack, you got to leave what you're doing. Get over here. And I called my other friend and I said, you got to quit whatever you're doing and get here. And then, I think we're down.
But what? I think you called it a war team. Am I wrong?
Oh yeah, well, that's a slightly different thing. That's when we expanded. Okay, within a year we had 3 stores. Within 2 years we had 9 stores. But what we would do, like when we opened in Chicago, every place we went, there was a lot of PR, a lot of public relations, and because of that, we knew that once it came out in the Chicago Tribune or the Washington Post or the San Francisco Examiner or the Miami Herald, that we were going to be swamped. So we had a war team. And the war team would go in force. There was like 3 or 4 people, and they would man, for lack of a better term, the store, along with the people who were already there, so that no one felt that we weren't prepared for them. And it worked out great. Now, the other war team concept was with a client of mine, but that's a whole other story, because I was on his war team to go into other cities. This is after I sold 4 Eyes and analyze different companies.
Yeah, I really like that concept of the war team.
Yeah, you need it. You need it. And if the people, going back to the original premise of this, people coming in and then you letting go of certain people, if I couldn't trust members of the war team, how would I possibly expand?
Exactly.
So I was very cognizant of having good people in good places and high places. You know, I almost always promoted from within and took care of them. So I think that answers a number of different aspects to that question.
Yeah. And it just went full circle, which is beautiful.
Yeah. Good.
So
that's it. This is our podcast number 3.
Podcast number 3.
Thanks for listening, for watching, and all our friends in Italy. Don't forget what I sang at the beginning.
Ciao.
Or Americans.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Ciao. Grazie, grazie, grazie. See y'all.
Thank you.